Earlier this week, I realized before we get into publishing interviews and reader reflections, I'm actually in dire need of revisiting some fundamental mindfulness theory based on some of my recent actions. I went to the park on Monday to do one of those workouts on, those urban gym equipment spaces with the pull-up bars and the rings. And I walked there with some serious swagger. I had my strawberry protein shake and I had my beats blasting, and I was ready to sculpt my body and conquer the world. And I was in the zone for about 15 minutes, propelling myself up, swinging, flying, utterly unstoppable, until something suddenly malfunctioned in my brain. And seconds later, I had convinced myself that this was all a waste of time, and what I really needed was a bag of gummy bears and a cheesy horror movie. So I thought to myself, let's bail. It's been a big week. I'm tired. I'll make faster gains with proper weights. I haven't eaten properly today. And there was this series of lightning speed rationalizations that I wasn't cognizant of in real time. And it wasn't until I was sprawled on the couch, choking on a fistful of polychromatic Sour Patch Kids, watching the fifth skimpily dressed teenager get mauled by a bear, that I thought to myself, man, given the wholesome start, that was quite an impressive fall from grace. So, I'm in need of a refresher of the basics. Maybe you are too. And I thought it might be nice to use some of these early episodes to walk through these ideas for those listeners who are totally unfamiliar with mindfulness or Buddhism, as well as provide a little refresher course for those of you who are more experienced. So given it was a craving for junk food that initiated my collapse, I thought, well, craving is the concept we should start with. Now, according to Buddha, craving is one of the big players in suffering. It's also sometimes referred to as thirst, greed, desire. I really like thirst because it's particularly evocative. I didn't crave gummy bears. I was bloody thirsting for them. And in Buddhism, there are three major subcategories of craving. There's craving for sensual desires, craving for being, and craving for non-existence. The latter two are pretty spicy, and we'll give them a go down the line. But today we're wrestling with craving for sensual desires. And the sensual desires I was looking at were refined sugars and cheap thrills in an air-conditioned room, nestled on the couch hugging a pillow. So aside from the fact that I skipped my workout to eat food with low nutritional content, what is inherently bad about acting on sensual desires? For example, sometimes I genuinely desire the sensual experience of a healthy green salad and the endorphin hit of a workout. Those are sensations. It appears the issue isn't in the net value gain or loss of a particular activity in terms of a particular goal, in this case, a health goal. It's about being miserable with your current state of being and believing that doing something different will fix that state. Bhikkhu Bodhi, in his book, The Noble Eightfold Path, writes, "Through craving, we become attached to things that are impermanent, transient, and subject to change. This attachment leads to continual dissatisfaction because we are always seeking fulfillment in things that can never provide lasting happiness." End quote. The funny thing is, I always seem to truly believe that whatever it is I am craving will provide lasting happiness. That's built into the feeling of craving, that you think satisfying the craving will solve all your problems. It reminds me of a time in school where school was, for me, something to try and survive so that I could get home to what I really wanted to be doing. And I remember that most viscerally being video games. I would become so immersed in the world of a particular game that I would just dream about the game all through class and find these desperate ways to try and escape back to that world which I wanted to be in. I would sketch the main characters on grid paper or bring in game instruction manuals and hide them in a math textbook and just reread them so many thousands of times that they would disintegrate. Then the second school ended, I would literally run the entire way home from school to my house because A, I wanted to get home faster, and B, I wanted to play as much as possible before my parents got home from work, because then I'd have to do things like practice trumpet or horrifically go outside. Not to mention they might need to use the phone, and this was the dial-up days, so the phone and the internet were mutually exclusive. But when I'd turn on the game and just hear the theme music playing over the loading screen, that was like heroin being mainlined into my veins. I can still perfectly remember the theme tunes of those games. If you were into Age of Empires, you might remember this one. It went like dum dum ba da ba bum 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 ba da ba da bum ba ba da ba da ba ba da ba da. And what that theme tune symbolized for me was the sense of sheer relief that I had made it through my pointless day, which had just felt like 7 hours of different flavors of boredom being strung together. And this relief was coupled with the excitement of what the next few hours would entail. But the drop-off rate of pleasure was astounding. The high was so short. Even minutes into the game, I would start to have the sense that this is really good, but it's not quite as good as I remembered it being. And then an hour in, I was just kind of going through the motions. And after 3 hours, I wasn't even sure I was having fun. Games often just feel like a grind at that point. And I'd go do anything else, any other activity, relieved to be off the computer. But it wouldn't take long for the desperation to play the game again to magically creep back in. Something I had just had enough of an hour ago was suddenly rekindling its siren song, singing, come back, I'll make you feel better, baby. And then my parents would say it's time for bed, and it felt like they were denying me my happiness. But this isn't about video games. It's the same with shopping and gambling and smoking and porn and social media and chocolate. Or even behaviors that aren't typically as addictive or potentially problematic, like running or calling a close friend. This is about that feeling of, if I just do this thing, everything will be better. And I'll use chocolate as an example here, but feel free to replace it with your own compulsive behaviors. When you really want chocolate, the chocolate in your imagination is going to make your skin melt and your eyes roll back into your head. The idea of chocolate that you build up includes a symphony of angels singing in 4-part harmony. Now, this is different to having a nice dessert after a meal. I'm talking about going for a stress-laden quest for a Snickers to satisfy an immense craving for chocolate as a coping mechanism for whatever it is you're trying to deal with. When you get the chocolate, just hearing the foil tear and crinkle transports you through time and space, and you walk alongside Charlie in the chocolate factory. And opening this chocolate is your golden ticket out of the grim reality you are living through. And the very first second, where your teeth sink into that creamy surface and sever the block into 2 pieces, which then instantly begin to melt and wrap your tongue in velvet, that is pure ecstasy. But then suddenly, the rest of the chocolate disappears, as if it was a desert mirage. And you think to yourself, I don't remember eating that. You have this strong sense that you didn't have enough chocolate, or you had too much, or it wasn't as good as you thought it would be, or you ate it too quickly, or you feel guilty for eating it. And all of a sudden, this thing you've been building up in your mind that was going to solve all of your problems has crumbled into dust and has dissolved into dissatisfaction. The craving can be satisfied, but in its place, just leaves some other hole that you now have to wrestle with. We play this game all day, every day, and really struggle to walk away having learned anything. So I think Buddhists would argue for a few key takeaways about cravings. That getting whatever it is you are craving won't fix your life. That thinking about craving will take you away from enjoying the present moment. And that the thing you're craving likely isn't bringing you closer to being who you want to be. And you'll get different responses about that last one along the spectrum of soft to very hard line. Some would argue that embracing craving can lead to anger, cruelty, and violence. And honestly, when you think about those who crave, say, power, it's not hard to see how that can play out. There is more to be said here, but I think the point is not that one can't have an occasional bad workout, or a bag of lollies, or watch a movie about hitchhiking college kids getting slashed to pieces, although I do think that Buddha might be slightly above that. It's worth cultivating through mindfulness, that extra step of examining a desire flying across the skyscape of your mind. Since you know that satisfying your craving won't magically make everything better, you have nothing to lose by just sitting with it for a few minutes, watching and analyzing the desire for just a moment before attempting to action it. Because the other thing about cravings is that they disappear of their own accord if left alone. That's a concept called impermanence, which we'll examine another time. But for now, see if you can try and notice just the very next craving that comes up today, and simply sit with it for 30 seconds before doing something about it. That's my only goal for today, and if I pull it off, I'll consider the entire day a success. So feel free to leave a comment wherever you're listening or watching this about what cravings dominate your life. And you can always write in with a reflection to me at the show email, overexamined@jonahprimo.com. I really love reading your insights and sharing them on the show when possible. I learned so much from your stories and observations, and that means that other listeners will too. I'm Jonah Primo. This is the Overexamined Life. See you next time.